And what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It is your boy Cheap Ludes, and it is time to finish off some tier lists. Today we're going to be doing the power forward position in NBA 2K21 My Team for the final time, I would assume, considering the last 2 days 2K has dropped literally zero content, not a single little morsel of content for whatever reason. I don't know. They haven't even done like a limited time event like double vault or like get one additional token for every win in TTO or something over the past couple days. I don't know what's going on, so I'm gonna do tier list instead. So power forward primary position only. Not gonna include any centers who would traditionally play more power forward roles, similar to who would be one, Bill Russell or something like that. Those guys will be on the center tier list. So S tier, unquestionable best cards in the game. A tier, just a shade under S tier. The line gets kind of blurry at this point in the year. I've talked about it before. I think the line's pretty clear in regards to the S tier guys that would be power forwards, realistically, between A tier and S tier. And I'll explain the best I can in relation to why each card is in each tier. I will also rank them within the tiers as well. So B tier. These are the cards majority of the community are going to be using if they're not using some of the A tier guys, because at this point every card's really cheap, so most people will actually probably be using A tier guys. But the B tier guys are very, very good cards. They're just not quite as good as the A tier guys, and I'll explain why. Maybe they have like an iffy jump shot, maybe they have like a couple things they don't do too well, maybe they're slightly small, slightly outdated. I'll explain it. C tier, super middle of the road cards. You can definitely get away with using them, but maybe they're a bit outdated. Maybe they're just, not that great, all things considered. Once again, I'll explain it. D tier, definitely should upgrade to C tier or above at this point, but they definitely will be able to do some stuff. And for certain people and certain things, like possibly like limited or like an offline grind, they might be good for something, but for the most part, you can do better. F tier, upgrade immediately, but they might still have a use or two. Which I'll explain. And trash tier. There's just nothing here, man. There's just not. You just got to abandon all hope at this point. Let's get started. Aaron Gordon, D tier. Kind of a slow jump shot. Still not that terrible of a card. Aaron Gordon is a lot better this year than he was last year, at least in my opinion. I think it was the limited reward. Aaron Gordon was pretty solid for a little bit. And to be honest, this one when he came out was pretty decent. He's just super outdated with that slower jump shot, so there's nothing wrong with him specifically. Juan Toscano, trash. Not his fault. Those season rewind reward cards were just pure garbage. And this is literally one of the worst ones, I think. They gave him like 1.5 hot zones, no badges, just an atrocious card. Radioactive Karolinko. I still think he's C tier. Like, at that point when Karolinko came out, like, all those cards are still usable in some fashion. They're definitely just outdated. But base 98, it's a great release, whether it's on very quick or quick. I actually prefer it on quick, personally. I feel like the jump shot timing is a little bit easier to manage. A lot of people wouldn't agree with that, but I think online, it definitely makes a difference when it's on quick. It's a little bit more consistent, in my opinion, anyway. Karolinko is great on next gen. He's still pretty solid on current gen. I would put him he's probably going to end up somewhere mid C tier. Antoine Walker, B tier. I don't think he is going to be towards the top of B tier. He'll probably be towards the bottom of B tier, but I do think he belongs in B tier regardless. This card is really, really good, especially for a free login card. And I don't really hear too many people talking about it, and I definitely think that's a shame because this card's tight. Jonathan Kuminga. Kuminga is incredibly good. I would say B tier, especially for the price that he's going. He is an excellent power forward / small forward, and I think he plays both positions pretty well. He reminds me of like Anton Jameson with a worse jump shot, but he's better at everything else, if that makes sense. Billy Cunningham. I mean, he's slightly better than Juan Toscano, but I think he's not even going to be as good as the guys in F tier. Big Dirk. I'm a little high on Big Dirk, I will say. I don't think he's going to be like the tip top of A tier or anything, but I think he'll be towards the bottom of A tier. I think he's a little too good to go to B tier, though. That's my own personal opinion. Big Blake from the Idols set. I would say C tier. He is just an upgraded version of the Pink Diamond Blake Griffin, essentially, that we got for the Season 2 reward. I believe it was Season 2. And he's still really good, and he was my power forward for a while. He's just been outclassed. He's outdated. Still a fun card, though. Bojan. Bojan, I think, would be C tier as well. I would use him over Aaron Gordon for sure. There's like no question in my mind about that. And I think he's just slightly too good to be in D tier, though I wouldn't put it past myself to drop him at some point. Brandon Clark, he's slightly better than Aaron Gordon, slightly worse than Bojan. So Byron Beck, who I thought I got rid of, he's trash. Karl Malone. I mean, realistically, this Karl Malone's probably like D tier or possibly low C tier, but it's Karl Malone. I always put him in trash tier for a reason. So, Hyperdrive Tim Duncan. I'm going to wait on him, to be honest. I'm going to put him down towards the bottom because I don't really know where to rank him as of yet. Invincible Larry Bird, I would put in B tier. Still good. Good card overall. Larry Bird's been fun all year. He's just not really crazy special. He's just like pretty good. You know what I mean? I hate to say he's mid because it's not really accurate, but it's Larry Bird. Like, you know exactly what you're expecting. He's not the biggest card. He's not the fastest card. His jump shot is really easy to green, but it misses a lot of whites. I personally like the release. It's really good on next gen, but on current, that is something that you have to understand because it has a really high arc to it. The more arc a jump shot has in this game, the more whites you're going to miss. But the bigger the green window is, so it's kind of a trade-off. Larry Bird's Larry Bird. I think he's still better than Kuminga and Antoine Walker, but I don't foresee him being the top of B tier. Danny Ferry, A tier. This is going to bother a lot of people, but I truly believe that Danny Ferry, as good as he is, I don't think he's quite S tier, and that has a lot to do with his player build, which is totally fine. It's not a bad player build by any means. He's definitely better than Dirk Nowitzki for sure overall. But Dirk Nowitzki is also 7 feet tall and has 99 everything, with a pretty good jump shot to get that Booker release. Obviously, Danny Ferry is base 98, so that clouds people's visions of Danny Ferry just a little bit, and he can play the small forward. But as a power forward, I don't think he's quite S tier, because I think the guys in S tier, at least the guys that I can think of that I would be like, oh yeah, I'm putting these guys in S tier, are significantly better than Danny Ferry, and I feel like everyone can agree with that. Jaden McDaniels. Shout out to all my Jadens out there. F tier. He doesn't have shooting badges. He's like worse Brandon Clark, basically. Jashawn Tate. He's really small, but he's like well-rounded, so I can't really put him in F tier, but he might drop down there at some point. You know what I mean? Jared Dudley, D tier. He's got great stats and badges, but he's also Jared Dudley. O'Shea Brissett. I actually like this card a lot more than majority of people do. I think he'll end up at the bottom of C tier. There's a lot of cards on this power forward tier list. Sean Kemp. Sean Kemp's really good. I would put him ahead of Blake Griffin. He's like slightly better than this Blake Griffin. Slightly worse than this Blake Griffin. C tier. Bobby Jones. C tier. He's definitely outdated, and I really wish we got a Dark Matter Bobby Jones. Perhaps an Invincible one would be great. Won't happen, but I can dream it, and I think he definitely deserves to be in C tier. Chris Bosh is one of the more underrated Invincibles in this game. Base 29, super smooth release. I believe he has Carmelo upper. There's just nothing really wrong with this card whatsoever. He's got good length. He plays much better at the power forward than the center, which is good because that's his primary position. I think B tier makes a lot of sense for him. You might even argue that he's better than Dirk. I prefer Dirk. Dirk just moves better. But I might drop Dirk down to B tier at some point. Danny Ferry stays up here because I think there'll literally be an uproar if I drop him any lower. OG Anunoby. I think he's C tier. I don't think he's going to necessarily be B tier all said and done. That's kind of why I'm putting him here for now. He's definitely the best card in C tier for now, though. Bull. S. Danny Ferry is not as good as Bull. I feel like that's universally known, right? And I feel like the gap between these two cards is large enough that Danny Ferry shouldn't be on the same tier as Bull. That's how I feel. That's why I'm putting Danny Ferry in A tier. You know what I mean? Juwan Howard. Look, people might think I'm crazy for putting Juwan Howard on the same tier as Danny Ferry, but Juwan Howard has Ray Allen base, and he is literally a god. And stats-wise, he's near 95 and above in everything. Like, this card is stupid. He is, and you can buy him for 8K, which I think is ridiculous. Like, Danny Ferry is still close to, like, I mean, he's a little lower now because the market crashed, but he's still over 10K. He's still more expensive than Juwan Howard, and I'd be willing to say they're equal at the absolute lowest. Like, I personally think Juwan Howard's better. That's just me, though. Jared Vanderbilt, he's like slightly better. Jaden McDaniels, but he's still worse than Brandon Clark. Chuma Okeke. You guys might think I'm trolling because I'm putting Chuma this high in C tier, but I'm not. I swear he's like my favorite Amethyst in the game. And I really think he is truly, like, if I had to play with a team, I would use Chuma over Blake Griffin, Sean Kemp, Bojan, and O'Shea Brissett. No question. Bobby Jones and Karolinko are a little tough. I don't know if I could justify that. But Chuma's that good. I just don't miss. Dorian Finney-Smith. I actually think this card's, like, better than everybody in D tier. He's, like, really good. For, like, what he is. For a super budget pink diamond, he's solid. Danilo Gallinari. I would put him in C tier as well. C tier is going to be stacked. The power forward position just has so many like mid tier options that are all like meh, pretty good. There's going to be a lot of guys in C tier. Like PJ Washington, if this was the center tier list, he probably ends up in D tier. No, he might actually be in C tier on the center tier list too, to be honest. This card's actually pretty decent. I would put him like, right, he's actually like better than Blake Griffin and Sean Kemp, if I'm being honest. Dan Issel, yeah. Trash. I forgot to take him off too. Georges Niang. He's the best card in D tier, I think. Well, you can make an argument for Brandon Clark, Aaron Gordon, but Niang, yeah, I think is D tier. Rewards Danny Ferry. Yeah, I mean I'd put him in B tier, but he's basically the same as this one. This one just has 33 additional badges. They're basically identical stats wise. So Invincible Big Blake. B tier. I think so anyway. Like I said, it's getting harder to justify Dirk in A tier because I think Big Blake and Chris Bosh are pretty close to him, but I still think Dirk is superior to those guys. But I will say Blake is a monster on current gen. Blake is not very good on next gen, but on current gen, he's absolutely a beast. Rewards Kukoc. C tier. Yeah, that makes sense. Keldon Johnson. He's a little bit better than Jashawn Tate, I think. So D tier. Richard Dumas. He's still really good, just outdated. But I like this card a lot. I would use him over Keldon, Deshaun, Jared Dudley. I'd probably use him over Aaron Gordon, too. Honestly, I'd use him over every one of those cards. Thaddeus Young. This one's going to ruffle feathers, but I actually legitimately think this Thaddeus Young card is B tier. He's so good. Look, if you love Danny Ferry and you want Danny Ferry in S tier, you really shouldn't argue that Thaddeus Young is ranked too high at that point. Because everything you love about Danny Ferry, Thaddeus Young does the same thing. He's literally identical, so he's just a shade smaller, but he's also a shade faster. So I don't know what to tell you there, but Thaddeus Young, super good. I actually prefer this Thaddeus Young to this Danny Ferry. I'm not even kidding. It's just me, though. George McGinnis, F. One of the more slept-on cards this year. That Joe Ingles base is really good. But he came out in Season 4 with the season rewind, or not season rewinds, but the throwback moments packs, and just no one cared about those lock-ins. So. Rashard Lewis, D. Slightly outdated. He was once they retooled his dribble sigs, though, he was like a really good card. Chris Webber. Wait, where'd he go? Oops. Chris Webber is, I would say, B tier. He's really similar to Kuminga. I personally think he's better than Danny Ferry, but I know that's not a consensus thing. But yeah, I would put him like ahead of Kuminga, Walker, and Thad Young. Rodman. I'm not kidding. He's B tier. Yeah, because you're like, oh, I love Tony Kukoc. Rodman is an invincible card. Yeah, he has kind of a slow jump shot. He's essentially a small forward, power forward version of Scottie Pippen, basically. Some of the best defensive animations in the game. He has some of the best blocking animations in the game. He rebounds better than like a lot of 7-footers do. This card has all the tools. Is he going to be the top of B tier? No. He'll be towards the bottom, but he still deserves B tier. If you've played with this Rodman, like, you know what's up. He's good. Danny Manning. This hurts, I'll be honest, but C tier. Like, it hurts. Danny Manning was, like, my favorite card last year. Maxi Kleber. F. And it's not Maxi Kleber. He's just outdated. I would use all the guys in D tier over him. Jeff Green. I would put Jeff Green in C tier. This card, great budget card, but, you know, that's about it. I put him pretty high, to be honest. I put him, like, right here. Still good, though. Obi Toppin. This card was really good, especially for a free card. Really nice. He deserves C tier, even though he's outdated a little bit. Rondé Hollis Jefferson, C tier. Especially for an Amethyst card, he's really nice. He's no Chuma, but he's good. Marcus Morris. I actually like this card. I'd put him by like O'Shea Brissett in C tier. Miles Bridges, same thing. I put him by like Dory Finney-Smith. He was like really slept on card as well. It was super tight. Keith Van Horn, he plays like no defense, but he has high stocks and he shoots really wet jumpers, so I'd put him in D. But my barometer is like, would I use Rondé Hollis Jefferson at power forward over Keith Van Horn? And the answer is yes, I would. Dave DeBusschere, I personally prefer him over every card in trash tier, but he's still trash tier. Yeah, Karl Malone's last. I don't care. Paul Millsap, this card is definitely outdated for sure, but I would still use him over Keith Van Horn or Richard Dumas, so I would put him by like Obi Toppin. John Collins. I'm going to put him at the bottom of B tier for now because I think this card is really good, but he might drop down into C tier. We'll see. Rocco, I'd still put him in C tier even though he's a bit outdated. Sidney Wicks, if he's got shooting badges, he's D, borderline C tier, but if he doesn't, he's like the best card in F tier. He's like superior to Jared Vanderbilt and Jaden McDaniels, but has a significantly worse badge count than someone like a Brandon Clark. He does have a good wingspan though, so maybe I'll move him up, but I don't really think it matters. Sadiq Bey, I like this card a lot. You know what? I put him by Rocco in C tier. He's just got such a money jump shot. I can't hate on this card. So good. Invincible Kevin Garnett. I like this card. I put him ahead of Antoine Walker, behind Kuminga. I prefer Kuminga. But Kevin Garnett's still one of the best defensive big men in this game. Unlike Rodman, though, he has a slightly better jump shot, which is why he's slightly ahead. I think it's ranked like that. Zach Collins, trash. Just trash. Just bad. Boris Diaw. You guys are not going to be happy with me for this one. I just know it. Just because a card is a budget card does not mean it deserves to be S tier. That being said, I love Boris Diaw, right? He is literally my bench power forward, even though I have better cards. Like I have Juwan Howard and I have Danny Ferry. I still prefer to use Boris Diaw over those guys. Juwan Howard I've been warming up to a little bit more, and he plays the point guard, so I can switch him over to point guard if I need to, which is really tight. But can I really for certain say he is that much better than Invincible Blake Griffin? I can't. I truly cannot say that. And can I say he is 100% better than Juwan Howard? Not really. Juwan Howard has basically the same ball handle stats as Boris Diaw. He's about the same size, and he has, in my opinion, a significantly better jump shot. Same with Danny Ferry. They just can't play the point guard. So for that reason, I'd put Boris Diaw at the top of B tier, but he still belongs in B tier in my opinion. Davis Bertans. Tough to say. I'd probably put him in C tier, probably by like Bojan. He's a decent card. He's about as C tier as they come. Zion. I would put him at like literally the bottom. I mean, he's still better than Antoine Walker. The problem with Zion Williamson, I mean, really just stems from the fact that he's 6'6". He can't play the small forward, but even that's kind of small at this point. So, Dean Wade, D. Pascal Siakam. I literally think he's up here by like Chris Webber and Danny Ferry. He's better than Danny Ferry. I don't even care. Siakam is one of the most underrated cards in this game and is literally still a monster and usable at this point. Cam Johnson, I think he's slightly better than like these guys. Like a blight, very slightly. Like he's better than Derek Favors for sure. For sure. Thurl Bailey, as much as I like Thurl Bailey, C tier is where I would put him, just because he has all gold shooting badges. Now, if you upgrade him, he might be borderline B tier because he does have that base 22 and stuff like that, but I think for that reason, I'll put him in C tier. Mo Lucas. Once again, another card that I really like, but he needs shooting badges. If he has shooting badges, he's like low to maybe low mid C tier, but without him, he's like D. Rui Hachimura. Rui's pretty good. I don't necessarily know if he's B tier though. Like I would throw him pretty close to OG. OG would make a lot of sense. Rui's good though. Like don't get me wrong, he's definitely not worth the lock-in though. That is 100% accurate. Like he's definitely not worth it. But he's 6'8", 6'10", wingspan. He's got jump shot 55, which is not the greatest. It's like Al Harrington's jump shot, and I think like Jabari Parker. So it's like a pretty solid one, but not really that great. He has pretty much every badge though. It's kind of tough to really say. I might move him up to B tier. I'm not sure. I'll put him at the bottom of B tier for now because he's pretty usable. Mystery Boris Diaw, I would throw him like low C tier. Boris Diaw's still good. I'd put him like Marcus Morris, Obi Toppin, Danilo, like right here. Yep. So I guess a little bit more mid C tier. Shane Battier, he's like better than Mo Lucas, kind of in this area. He's decent though. Like he's just a good 3-and-D wing. That's about all you can ask for him. Derek Jones Jr., so good for limited. I would put him in D tier for that reason. I think he is worse than like Rondé Hollis Jefferson and Chuma though, both in like badge count and stats and everything like that. I actually really like this card, so I'm going to put him high in D tier. I put him the best card in D tier personally. I don't even care. But I think he's just not quite good enough to be in C tier because the barometer is Rondé Hollis Jefferson, and I think he is better than Derek Jones Jr. You know what I mean? Joe Smith, he's not high in C tier, but I love this card, so I'm putting him in C tier. Fight me. Big Scal. Big Scal's fire, dude. C tier. No question. Kyle Anderson, I would also put in C tier. He does need shooting badges attached to him, just like Thurl Bailey. But he's a really good 3-and-D card. Invincible AD. Yeah, I would throw Invincible AD pretty high into B tier. The Space Jam one would probably go in B tier too, but I don't think it's on this list. Yeah, I mean, just like Blake Griffin, he's still really good. It's just nothing spectacular at this point when every card can do everything. Draymond Green, lower. He's like worse Invincible Blake Griffin, basically. So I would put him like ahead of Dennis Rodman. I put him like right here because he can play the point guard. He's like a way worse Boris Diaw, basically. That's not way worse, but worse. Thon Maker, I put him in A tier. I don't think he's quite S tier just because of his badge count. If he had an increased badge count, he would be S tier, no question. But I still think he is the best card in A tier, though. No question about it. Yes, better than Danny Ferry. Invincible Tim Duncan, I'm not a huge fan of Tim Duncan personally. I do think like his jump shot is like really bad at this point. Some people would literally take Tim Duncan and throw him in like D tier or something. I would say overall, in my opinion, he's the best card in C tier, though. And the Hyperdrive one would be the same. Yeah, some of these cards are a little bit more meta. But I think if we're talking about overall complete card, I think Tim Duncan's probably the best. I mean, maybe I move him down a little bit. He's basically Invincible Kevin Garnett, but he moves a little bit better, in my opinion, than KD. But he's got a way worse jumper. He's kind of similar to Rodman, actually, but Rodman just feels better. I don't know. Elvin Hayes, I'd throw him over by like, yeah, right there. No, actually, I'd put him by like behind PJ Washington, around like Blake Griffin, Sean Kemp, C tier. Eric Pascal, where would he go? He's an interesting one. He's pretty solid. I put him by Chuma, I think, actually. I like Pascal a lot. Giannis, F. He just can't shoot. Not really his fault. He's not trash tier, though. He's just F. You should definitely upgrade, but if you like Giannis a lot, go ahead. Use him. Bob Pettit. What's up, Bob Pettit? You know what? I can't put Giannis in F. That actually, like, no, D. Bob Pettit, though. Big Pat. I'd put him, like, by Davis Bertans in C tier. Rudy LaRusso. This hurts my soul, but he has to go in D tier. I wanted a Dark Matter Rudy so bad. Kyle Kuzma, people are not going to agree with this one either, but I really do think Kyle Kuzma is B tier. I'm going to move Rui down to like OG Anunoby. I might move Kyle Kuzma down too. We'll see. Glenn Robinson, absolutely C tier. Base 22, fire jumper. Boris Diaw area. He's a little bit better than Boris Diaw, I think. Rudy Tomanovic, still a little bit better than F tier, I think, because he can at least shoot. Nah, he's F tier. Who cares? Tobias Harris. I'd put him like by Big Scow in C tier. Still a pretty good card. Hakeem Warwick. My favorite card in D tier, but D tier nonetheless. Hot Rod Williams. Trash. Michael Kidd Gilchrist. Trash. Idols Chris Bosh. He's going to be Blake Griffin, Sean Kemp area. Yep. LaMelo Ball. I mean, he's just really small, and his badge count is kind of low at this point. But he's not like trash. He's like D. Invincible Giannis, S tier. I'm not going to try to rank these two guys because, like, that's just personal preference at that point. Like, realistically. Isaiah Roby, yeah, just trash. Anton Jameson, he's slightly better than, like, Draymond and Antoine Walker. I would actually throw him by, like, Kuminga because he has that XM base. I think he's a little bit better. There we go. Yep, that looks right. Everything looks right in the universe. Moments, Jason Tatum. um, I'd put him like right here, C tier. I don't think he's that good. This one specifically. Invincible Tatum's good, but I don't think that one is. Tony Kukoc. Yeah, A tier. He's like better Juwan Howard. But Juwan Howard's a little bit better on the interior, in my opinion. But they're so close, they deserve to be right next to each other. They're really not that much different. Jerry Lucas, not very good. I would put him in D tier. Crozier, all he can do is shoot. F. Horace Grant. I would say low C tier, but he's a Bull clone, so you kind of know what you're getting at. I actually know what? I'll put him by Chris Bosh, Sean Kemp, Blake Griffin, Elvin Hayes. They're all kind of like similar. Derek Jones, I love this card. I would put him up pretty high in C tier. He's really good. Poku, D. I don't like Poku at all. The Scottie Pippen jumper on him just doesn't fit. It's not good. Jonathan Isaac. Okay, this is another controversial one, but I actually think Jonathan Isaac is A tier. Like, I truly believe he's better than all of the cards in B tier. I do. He's so good. Get mad if you want. Kenny Walker. Kenny Walker's actually pretty solid. I'd put him in D tier. Kenny Martin Jr., Jashawn Tate, and Keldon Johnson. Kermit Washington, he is a little bit outdated, so he's very similar to Mo Lucas. If I'm not mistaken, I think they were teammates at one time. Kermit Washington did almost kill Rudy Tomanovich, though, so I'm sure Rudy is kind of glad he's not on the same tier. Idols Garnett is right here with the outdated big man squad in C tier. So, Space Jam AD is in here too. I'd throw him like over here. He's slightly worse than the Invincible one, but he's still like pretty close. And the price difference, it's not worth it. Jonathan Isaac, this one, he's just outdated, so he's close to the top. He might be the best card in C tier, in my opinion. I'm high on Jonathan Isaac this year, though. Yeah, Kuzma's still in B tier. He's a good card, dude. If you don't think Kuzma has been in B tier, you probably just haven't used that card yet. Or you're just not a fan of Kuzma. That's cool, too. Lamar Odom, D. Still fun, though. Hyperdrive, Larry Bird. He's the exact same as the Invincible, so they're right next to each other. Hyperdrive, Timmy D. Basically the exact same as the Invincible, so right next to each other. I'm going to say Rui's a little bit better. I think Tatum is, and I think Kukoc is, but I think the rest of this is accurate. Derek Jones Jr. might be a little better too, but we'll see. Larry Johnson, yeah, no question, B tier for sure. He's better than a lot of these cards. I'm going to move Antoine Walker. Yep, that looks better to me. Larry Johnson's good. Also, his Opal would be right here too. If I had to, yeah, I would say his Opal would be like right here as well. Larry Nance, I don't know why he's here. Trash tier, same with Mo Spates. Still ahead of Karl Malone, though. Mo Harkless, I would say, yeah, D tier. Sekou Doumbouya, high D tier. He's really good. I can't say he's actually worse than Rondé Hollis Jefferson and like Robert Covington, though. I'd go right there. Dean Wade's here in D tier out of spite. Thad Young, absolutely D tier for sure. I don't think he deserves to be too much higher just because his badge count's low. He's a Ruby, but for being a Ruby, he's fire. So I'll put him in D tier. Xavier McDaniel, right next to Kermit Washington and Mo Lucas. D tier, makes sense. And this Zion. To be honest, this might be a little bit of a weird one, but I think he's way closer to this Miles Bridges than people realize. Like, if we're being completely honest here, he's like significantly closer to that card than people really realize. So for that reason, that's where I would put him in C tier. I mean, honestly, like at this point, at this stage, he is the oldest dark matter in the game. His badge count is really low. He's 6'6", which is not good. He basically has an identical badge count to this Miles Bridges, which, not saying either of these cards are bad. Look, if a card's in C tier and you still use it and you like using the card, just keep using it. Like, it's nothing wrong with the card. I'm just rating it for newer players. You know what I mean? I'm trying to help you out. I'm trying to help people out make decisions. Like, oh, especially if you've never used a card and you're like, oh, I kind of want to grind for Bob Pettit, but I could also buy Chris Webber or something, you know? Like, that way you're looking, you're like, oh, okay, Chris Webber's like way better than Bob Pettit. I'm going to just spend $14K and go get Chris Webber. You know what I mean? As always, it has been your boy Cheap Ludes. I will see you guys later. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Where your favorite players ranked correctly? Where should they have been? You guys always let me know. So check the description for all my stuff, and hopefully I will be out of this room in the next like 24 to 48 hours. We'll see. I don't know. Peace.